Welcome to Infidelity Love, where love burns, lies unravel, and secrets always come to light. If you crave stories filled with passion, betrayal, heartbreak, and revenge, then you're in the right place. Here, every twist cuts deep, and every episode keeps you begging for more. Subscribe now and dive into the dangerous world where love and deception collide. It was a calm afternoon in the city of Coastal. The sun shone brightly, making the trees in the garden dance gently in the wind. In a cozy home tucked away in a quiet neighborhood, everything seemed peaceful. The sound of birds chirping filled the air, and the aroma of freshly cooked jollof rice from the kitchen made the house smell warm and inviting. Inside the living room, the atmosphere was different. Joseph, a tall man in his early 30s with soft brown eyes and a calm face, sat on the couch, reading a newspaper. He was wearing a simple blue shirt and jeans, looking every bit the picture of a regular man. But his mind wasn't focused on the paper. It was on his wife, Samantha. Samantha was in the kitchen humming a tune as she prepared lunch. She was a beautiful woman with long dark hair and a warm smile. But today, Joseph couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Her smile had seemed distant lately, and she spent more time on her phone than usual. Joseph glanced at the clock on the wall. It was already 3 p.m., and she had been in the kitchen for almost 2 hours. He stood up and walked quietly towards the kitchen. As he approached, he saw her sitting at the table, her head bent over her phone. Her fingers tapped the screen, but her eyes were wet. Joseph's heart skipped a beat when he saw the tears streaming down her face. "Samantha," Joseph called gently, his voice full of concern. Samantha quickly wiped her eyes and turned towards him. The shock in her face was clear, but she quickly masked it with a forced smile. "Joseph, you're home early," she said, trying to sound normal. Joseph was confused. He had never seen his wife cry like this before, and he had no idea why she was so upset. He had been busy with work, but now it felt as though everything in their world had changed in an instant. "Why are you crying?" Joseph asked softly, walking towards her. He stood close enough to reach out and touch her shoulder, but she shrank back slightly, her body tense. "I'm fine, Joseph," she said quickly, her voice shaky. "I just remembered something from the past, that's all." Joseph felt the knot in his stomach tighten. He didn't believe her. "It's not just something from the past, Samantha. I know something is bothering you. Talk to me." Samantha looked away, her eyes focused on the floor. Joseph could see the hesitation in her eyes, the pain she was trying to hide. It was as though she was struggling with something deep inside her, something she couldn't share. But Joseph knew that she had to tell him the truth. Before Joseph could speak again, Samantha stood up and wiped her eyes. "It's nothing, Joseph. Really. It's nothing." Joseph wasn't sure what to believe anymore. He had always trusted his wife, but something in his gut told him there was more to the story than she was letting on. His heart raced, and he could feel the tension building up in the room. Just as he was about to press her for more answers, Samantha's phone beeped loudly. She quickly picked it up, her eyes scanning the screen. Joseph saw the sudden change in her expression. Her face flushed, her hands trembled as she read the message. Joseph moved closer, his curiosity growing. "Who was that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Samantha hesitated for a moment, her face pale. "It's nothing. Just a friend from college," she replied, but Joseph could see the lie in her eyes. He stared at her for a long moment, the silence between them heavy with unspoken words. Something wasn't right. Joseph couldn't shake the feeling that the message had something to do with the tears in Samantha's eyes. "Who was it really, Samantha?" Joseph's voice was firm, but it trembled with uncertainty. Samantha's hands shook as she put the phone down on the table. She didn't answer right away. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "It was Michael, my ex." The name hit Joseph like a cold wave. Michael. He had heard about him before. The man from Samantha's past, the one she never spoke of. Joseph felt a rush of anger, jealousy, and confusion, all at once. Why would she be crying over him? Why now? I don't understand, Joseph said, his voice thick with emotion. Why is he messaging you? After all these years? Samantha stood silent, her face unreadable. The weight of her secret hung in the air like a dark cloud. Joseph could feel it pressing down on him. He was beginning to realize that the perfect life he thought they had wasn't as perfect as it seemed. As the tension grew, Samantha's eyes met his for the first time since he entered the room. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Instead, she walked away, leaving Joseph standing there, his mind spinning with questions he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answers to. The house felt colder now. The warm, welcoming atmosphere that had once filled their home was gone, replaced by an uncomfortable silence that seemed to stretch on forever. Joseph stood in the middle of the kitchen, trying to understand what had just happened. His heart beat faster and his thoughts raced. Samantha had walked away without another word. She hadn't even looked at him when she left the room. She just walked out, leaving him standing there with nothing but the unanswered questions swirling in his mind. Joseph knew something wasn't right. There had to be more to this. His wife had never shown any sign of still being attached to her ex. They had been married for 5 years, and in all that time, Joseph had never once felt insecure about their relationship. Samantha had always been loving and kind, but now things were different. The tears, the secretive phone call, and the mention of Michael. It all added up to something Joseph wasn't ready to face. He walked out of the kitchen and into the living room, pacing back and forth. His mind was consumed with thoughts of Michael. Who was this man really? What had he meant to Samantha all those years ago? And why was he suddenly reappearing in her life now? Joseph knew he had to confront her, but he also understood that pushing her too hard might drive her further away. He needed to understand her side of the story, but it was clear she wasn't ready to talk. The sound of footsteps behind him startled him, and he turned to see Samantha standing in the doorway. She looked hesitant, her eyes avoiding his gaze, but there was something different about her now. She seemed more fragile, as if the weight of something heavy was resting on her shoulders. "I didn't mean to upset you," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't want you to find out like this." Joseph stopped pacing and faced her. His heart was still racing, but he tried to keep his emotions in check. "Samantha, what's going on? Why are you crying over Michael? What did he say to you?" Samantha bit her lip, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. She took a deep breath before speaking, as if gathering the strength to say what she knew she had to. "It's not what you think," she began, her voice shaking slightly. "I never wanted you to find out about him. I didn't even want to think about him myself. But he contacted me out of nowhere. He said he wanted to apologize for what happened, that he'd made a mistake." Joseph felt a knot tighten in his chest. He had never heard Samantha speak about Michael like this before. The way she was talking now sounded as if she still cared about him in some way. "Apologize for what?" Joseph asked, his voice tense with frustration. "What did he do to you?" Samantha hesitated again, her eyes filled with regret. She finally spoke, her words barely audible. "He left me, Joseph. He chose his career over me, and when I needed him the most, he disappeared without a word. I was devastated, and I never truly got over it. I buried those feelings deep down inside, and I thought I could forget him." Joseph's stomach churned. The pain in her voice was clear, and he could feel the weight of her words hanging in the air. He had known about Michael. She had mentioned him briefly when they first started dating, but Joseph had always assumed that chapter of her life was closed. Now it seemed as if the past was coming back to haunt them both. "I didn't want to hurt you, Joseph," Samantha continued, her voice trembling. "But when he contacted me, all those old feelings came rushing back. I didn't know what to do. I felt so confused. And when I saw his message, I couldn't stop crying." Joseph felt a surge of anger rise in him, but he quickly pushed it down. He didn't want to lash out at her. He wanted answers, not more pain. "So, what do you want, Samantha?" Joseph asked, his voice strained. Do you still care about him? Do you want to be with him? Samantha's eyes widened in shock. No, Joseph, I don't want to be with him. I love you. You're the one I'm married to. But sometimes it's hard to ignore the past. It's hard to pretend that part of me doesn't still hurt. Joseph stood silent for a long moment, processing what she had said. He didn't know what to feel anymore. On one hand, he understood her pain. Losing someone she loved must have been difficult, but on the other hand, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more going on. Something that Samantha wasn't telling him. I need some time to think, Joseph said quietly, his voice filled with both frustration and confusion. I need to understand what's really going on here. Samantha nodded, tears beginning to fall from her eyes again. She stepped forward but stopped herself before reaching him. I'm sorry, Joseph. I never wanted this to hurt you. Joseph could hear the sincerity in her voice, but it didn't ease the pain he felt. He turned away from her and walked towards the living room window. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the floor. The world outside seemed so peaceful, yet inside, everything felt like it was falling apart. He stared out the window, his thoughts racing. What was he supposed to do now? He loved his wife, but the trust he had in her was starting to slip away. Samantha had opened up about Michael, but Joseph still felt like there was something she wasn't saying. The evening was quiet, but Joseph's mind was far from peaceful. The air in the house felt heavy with unspoken words, and despite the warmth of the dimmed lights in the living room, a chill ran through him. He sat on the couch, his hands resting on his lap, as he replayed every conversation he'd ever had with Samantha. Her laughter, her smile, her love. They all seemed to fade as his mind twisted the details of that afternoon. Why was she still so affected by Michael? Why had he suddenly appeared in her life again? He glanced towards the kitchen. Samantha had retreated there after their conversation, but her presence seemed distant. The house felt empty even though she was just on the other side of the wall. Joseph sighed, rubbing his forehead as the weight of the situation bore down on him. He needed answers, but how could he get Samantha to open up without pushing her away completely? As time passed, he heard the soft shuffle of footsteps coming from the hallway. He turned his head, expecting to see Samantha, but instead it was his phone ringing. The caller ID flashed Michael's name, sending a sharp jolt through Joseph's chest. His first instinct was to hang up, but curiosity got the better of him. He hesitated for a moment, then answered the call. Hello? Joseph's voice was tight, trying to mask the anger brewing inside him. There was a long pause before Michael's voice came through, calm but slightly hesitant. Joseph, it's Michael. I know this must be a surprise to you, but I need to talk. Joseph felt a rush of heat rise in his chest. Talk? What exactly do you think you have to talk about? You've been gone for years, and now, all of a sudden, you're back in Samantha's life? After everything you did to her? Michael's voice faltered for a brief second before he continued. I never wanted to hurt her, man. I made some mistakes when I was younger. I didn't understand what I had until it was gone. I'm not asking for forgiveness, but I need to explain myself. It's important. Joseph's fingers tightened around the phone. He didn't know whether to be more angry or confused. How dare Michael come back into Samantha's life now, after all these years? And yet, part of him felt a strange sense of uncertainty. What was Samantha not telling him? Why hadn't she told him about Michael reaching out? I don't know why you think you can just come back and fix things, Joseph said, his voice low and filled with restraint. You can't just pick up where you left off. Samantha is married to me now. I understand that, Michael said, his tone softening. But you need to hear me out. I'm not trying to take her away from you. I just want to clear the air, man. For everyone's sake. This is bigger than just us. Joseph was silent for a moment. Fine. Talk. But this better be good. Michael let out a long breath. The truth is, I never really moved on from Samantha. I thought I had, but when I heard she was married, I realized that I never stopped loving her. But that's not the only reason I reached out to her. There's something you need to know, Joseph. Something about her past. Something I never told her. Joseph's heart skipped a beat. What are you talking about? Michael's voice dropped even lower, almost a whisper. I can't say too much over the phone, but it's something she needs to hear from me. She deserves to know the whole truth, Joseph. The room felt colder now. Joseph's mind raced, his thoughts a blur. What was Michael talking about? What truth had he been hiding from Samantha all these years? Why are you telling me this? Joseph asked, his voice tinged with suspicion. Because I owe it to her, Michael replied quietly. And I owe it to you. I don't want to be the reason she's unhappy, but you deserve to know what's been buried. You need to hear the full story. Joseph's stomach twisted. His thoughts were a whirlwind of emotions: anger, confusion, betrayal. His fingers clenched the phone tighter as Michael's words echoed in his mind. What was this mystery he was hinting at? Was there more to Samantha's past than she had ever let on? Could everything they had built together be a lie? Before Joseph could respond, Michael added, I'll be in town tomorrow. We need to meet face to face. You'll understand everything then. Joseph's mind raced as he tried to make sense of the situation. He didn't trust Michael, not after all the pain he had caused Samantha. But something about his tone made Joseph wonder if this was more than just a man trying to get back into his ex's life. I'll think about it, Joseph said coldly, but don't think for a second I'll let you back in her life without consequences. The call ended abruptly, and Joseph was left in a sea of silence. The weight of Michael's words hung heavily in the air. What was going on? Why hadn't Samantha told him everything? And what could Michael possibly have to say that could change anything? He stood up and walked to the window, staring out into the night. The moonlight bathed the street below in a soft glow, but all Joseph could feel was darkness. The weight of the unknown pressed on him, and he couldn't shake the feeling that his entire world was about to unravel. The next day dragged on for Joseph like a slow, suffocating tide. Every minute felt like an hour. His mind was filled with Michael's words, and he couldn't escape the gnawing feeling of uncertainty. He couldn't stop thinking about what Samantha had told him the night before. The way she had opened up about her past, about Michael, made Joseph question everything he thought he knew about their relationship. Was she hiding something from him? Was there a part of her past that was so painful she couldn't bear to share it? It wasn't like Samantha to keep secrets. She had always been honest with him, even when the truth was hard to hear. So why did this feel different? Why did it feel like she was holding back, as if there was more to the story she wasn't ready to face? Joseph's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, interrupting his spiraling thoughts. He looked down at the screen, an unknown number. His heart skipped a beat as he answered. Hello? His voice was cautious. Joseph, it's Michael again, came the voice on the other end, calm but insistent. I'm in town. I think it's time we meet. Joseph's grip tightened on the phone. This was it. The moment he'd been dreading was finally here. When and where? Joseph asked, his voice clipped. Michael gave a location, a quiet, secluded coffee shop on the outskirts of town. It wasn't far from where Joseph lived, but it was enough to make him feel uneasy. Why not meet in a more public place? Why somewhere that felt so isolated? I'll be there, Joseph said, hanging up without another word. His heart was pounding now, the anticipation and fear mixing into a powerful rush of adrenaline. He looked toward the living room, where Samantha sat, her eyes glued to her phone, unaware of the storm brewing. Joseph's emotions were conflicted. Part of him wanted to tell her everything, what Michael had said, the meeting that was about to take place, but another part of him was afraid. What if Samantha wasn't ready to hear the truth? What if the past was too much for her to face? He couldn't keep hiding from the truth, though. He had to know what was really going on. He had to find out what Michael had to say. For his sake. For Samantha's. The coffee shop was dimly lit when Joseph arrived. the soft hum of quiet conversations in the background. It was a cozy place, the kind of spot people came to for intimate discussions. But as Joseph stepped inside, he felt the weight of the place press down on him. He wasn't here for a casual chat. He was here for answers. He spotted Michael sitting in a corner, alone, a cup of coffee in front of him. His face was a mixture of calm and apprehension. As Joseph walked toward the table, Michael looked up, his eyes filled with a mixture of guilt and something else, something Joseph couldn't quite place. "Thanks for coming," Michael said as Joseph sat down, his voice steady but laced with tension. "I know this isn't easy." Joseph didn't waste any time. He leaned forward, his hands clasped tightly in front of him. "Let's get this over with. What's going on, Michael? What do you need to tell me about Samantha?" Michael took a deep breath, his gaze dropping to his coffee cup before meeting Joseph's eyes. "It's not just about Samantha, Joseph. It's about everything. The things she hasn't told you. The things she never wanted anyone to know." Joseph felt his pulse quicken. "What are you talking about? What are you hiding?" Michael's eyes flickered with something like regret. "You have to understand, Samantha wasn't just heartbroken when I left her. She was devastated. She lost everything, her family, her future, her sense of self. She didn't just lose me, she lost a part of herself. And after I left, she made decisions that led her down a path I never wanted her to go on." Joseph's heart pounded louder. "What do you mean? What decisions?" Michael looked away as if he was searching for the right words. Finally he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "When I left her, Samantha didn't just cry over me. She spiraled. She got involved in things she's ashamed of now, things she'd never want anyone to know. And she buried all of it deep inside. She thought if she moved on, if she got married, she could forget about it, but she didn't." Joseph sat back, his mind reeling. "What things? What are you talking about?" Michael's gaze was heavy with sorrow. "She started seeing someone else, another man, a man she didn't love, but who was there when she needed someone. She did things she regrets, Joseph, things that changed her." Joseph's stomach twisted in knots. "You're telling me my wife cheated on me?" Michael shook his head quickly. No, it wasn't like that. But she wasn't in a good place, Joseph. She wasn't herself. She was broken. And when I came back into her life, it stirred up all those old feelings, the guilt, the pain, the things she's never told you about. She hasn't been completely honest with you because she's afraid of what you'll think of her." The words hit Joseph like a punch to the gut. His mind raced as everything began to make sense in a way that was hard to comprehend. Samantha had never told him about this. She had never mentioned the dark side of her past. All he knew was the woman she was now, the woman he loved. But had he been living with a lie? Was the Samantha he knew the real Samantha, or was there something darker lurking in the corners of her soul? He looked at Michael, his anger rising again. "Why are you telling me this now? What do you want from me?" Michael leaned forward, his voice urgent. "I'm telling you this because I think you need to understand her. You need to know what she's been carrying with her all these years. It's not just about me, it's about her healing, and it's about what she needs from you." Joseph's head spun with confusion, betrayal, and hurt. Was Michael really here to help? Or was he just trying to stir the pot? Was this truth something Samantha had been hiding from him? Or was it something she was still trying to bury? Joseph sat there staring at Michael, trying to process everything he had just learned. His mind was a storm of emotions, anger, confusion, betrayal, but beneath it all there was a deep sadness. A sadness that came from realizing that the woman he had built his life with was not as perfect as he had believed. Samantha's past, her pain, the things she had hidden from him, all of it made Joseph feel like he was standing on the edge of a cliff, unsure of whether to step forward or turn back. Michael watched him closely, sensing the internal battle taking place. "I know this is a lot to take in, Joseph, but I'm not your enemy. I'm just trying to help you understand her better." Joseph's eyes narrowed, still trying to make sense of everything. Why didn't she tell me any of this? Why keep it a secret? Michael shook his head slowly, a trace of regret in his eyes. Because she's ashamed. She thinks that if you knew the truth, you wouldn't love her anymore. She spent so many years trying to bury her past, but it's still there. And when I came back into her life, it stirred up all those old wounds. She doesn't want to face it. She doesn't want you to see her as broken. Joseph felt a pang of sympathy for Samantha, but it was clouded by the betrayal he was feeling. He had always prided himself on being a good husband, someone who trusted his wife completely. But now that trust seemed shattered. I don't know what to think, Joseph admitted, his voice heavy with doubt. I don't know what's real anymore. Michael sat back, his expression softening. Look, I don't want to cause any more pain. I just want you to know the truth. What you do with it is up to you. But whatever happens, you need to talk to her, Joseph. Don't let this fester inside. You're married. You have to be open with each other. She needs your understanding, even if she's afraid to ask for it. Joseph was silent for a moment, reflecting on Michael's words. His thoughts were a whirlpool of emotions, but one thing was clear. He couldn't ignore this any longer. He couldn't pretend that everything was fine when he knew it wasn't. He had to confront Samantha. He had to ask her the hard questions and listen to her side of the story. Only then could they move forward, together or apart. As Joseph left the coffee shop, the weight of the situation felt heavier than ever. The cold air outside was biting, but it did nothing to cool the fire inside him. He had learned something he hadn't expected, something that changed everything.
That evening, when Joseph returned home, the house was quiet. Samantha was sitting on the couch, her eyes red from what he assumed was another round of tears. She looked up when he entered, but there was no surprise in her gaze. She must have known that something was coming. Joseph stood in the doorway for a moment, gathering his thoughts. This was the moment of truth. The moment when they would either heal together or unravel completely. I spoke to Michael today, Joseph said softly, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Samantha's face fell, and she looked away, clearly trying to hold back the tears. I didn't want you to find out this way, she whispered. I was hoping we could forget the past. Joseph walked over and sat beside her, taking her hand in his. I don't want to forget the past, Samantha, but I need to understand it. You've been hiding something from me. Why didn't you tell me about Michael? About what happened? Samantha took a deep breath, her shoulders trembling slightly. I didn't tell you because I was ashamed. I was so ashamed of what I'd become when I lost him. I thought I could move on, that I could forget about him and everything I went through. But it never left me. It followed me into our marriage, into everything we've built. Joseph squeezed her hand, his heart aching. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to feel anymore. Samantha turned to face him, her eyes filled with tears. I didn't want to hurt you, Joseph. I never meant to keep secrets from you, but I thought if I told you the truth, you'd leave me. I thought you wouldn't love me anymore. Joseph gently wiped away the tears from her cheek. I'm not going anywhere, Samantha, but we need to be honest with each other. We can't keep hiding from the truth. If we want to move forward, we have to face everything together. Samantha nodded, her tears flowing freely now. I'm sorry, Joseph. I should have told you sooner. Joseph pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. We'll figure this out, one step at a time. Moral lesson: secrets and lies can build walls between even the closest of relationships. Honesty, understanding, and communication are the foundation of any strong bond. When we are brave enough to face the truth, even the most painful parts of our past, we allow ourselves the chance to heal and grow together. Trust is not just about knowing the truth but being willing to work through the difficult moments, side by side.
Thank you for watching. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for watching and supporting my videos. Your time, your comments, and your love mean everything. Every view, like, and share keeps this channel alive, and I couldn't do it without you. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps bring even more passionate, emotional, and unforgettable love stories to life. Stay tuned for more drama, romance, and unexpected twists. Until next time, keep loving, keep feeling, and keep watching. Sparkling Heart, much love, infidelity love.